Hey everybody, my name is Jason and you're watching Netminder Review. Thank you for watching, and before I go any further, will you please subscribe? Please subscribe. Okay, that's out of the way. Today I want to talk about my favorite goaltenders to watch. Now, I'm not talking specifically about my favorite goaltenders, period, because a couple of my favorite goaltenders were actually, and this might seem strange, but I'll explain it, were not actually some of my favorite goaltenders to watch. And specifically who I have in mind here are Patrick Roy and Martin-Brodeur. So they were fantastic, amazing goaltenders. Usually if you start arguing about which goaltender is the best goaltender in the history of the NHL, those two names are going to be in the debate. And I think rightfully so. In fact, I would rank them probably second and third. However, they were not necessarily my favorite goaltenders to watch. I loved them because I was a Devils fan and I was a Canadiens fan. I still am, both a Devils fan and a Canadiens fan. And so I loved those two guys because I knew they were going to win. And whenever Roy went over to Colorado, I was still a Colorado fan at the time. Not so much anymore because of Stan Kroenke. Sorry, Avalanche fans, but being from St. Louis, you know, him taking the Rams and all that jazz, not a Kroenke fan. Anyway, I'm going way off track here. So to get back on track, Patrick Roy, Martin-Brodeur, they were amazing goaltenders, but they were so positionally sound that they weren't always the most exciting goaltenders to watch. It was exciting to watch the teams that they backstopped because they won a lot, but watching Roy and Brodeur specifically play, I mean, don't hear me saying they never had a flashy save. They had some flashy saves. But they were so positionally sound that a lot of times it was a little bit ho-hum to watch them. So they're not among my favorite goaltenders to watch all time, but they are among some of my favorite goaltenders. Now, I'm wearing my Guns N' Roses shirt today because I'm doing favorites, and Guns N' Roses is one of my favorite all-time bands. So that's why I went with Guns N' Roses. Anyway, favorite all-time goaltenders to watch. Number 3 on my list, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, hit like historically who were my favorites, and then I'm going to throw out who's my favorite to watch right now, okay? So number 3 on my list, historically, of all goaltenders I've ever watched, was Curtis Joseph. Now, I grew up in St. Louis, or just south of St. Louis, big-time Blues fan, have been a Blues fan since the late 80s when I was just a kid. And Curtis Joseph was not the first goaltender playing for the Blues. When I started watching hockey, Vincent Riendo was the starting goaltender for the Blues. And it was just after the Rick Wamsley and Greg Millen era. So I was familiar with them a little bit, but not really. So I started watching hockey. Vincent Riendo was the Blues goaltender. And shortly thereafter, boom, came Curtis Joseph. And Joseph was one of those guys that he made goaltending look exciting. I'm not saying he wasn't ever positionally sound. I don't want to suggest that because, in my opinion, the more positionally sound a goaltender is, sometimes the less exciting he is to watch. So, you know, again, going back to Brodeur and Roy. But Joseph was positionally sound enough, but he was a speed guy, right? He was a guy who was all reflexes. He was a guy that, in my experience, if my mind serves me correctly, if my memory serves me correctly, he seemed to play better when the shots on goal went up. All right, now I'm not talking like, I mean, it's pretty common for a goaltender to, you know, have trouble when he only sees 12 shots an entire game because he can't get into the game. But I'm talking the difference between like 25 shots and 40 or 45 shots. You know, it seemed like Joseph, if my memory serves me, it seems like Joseph played better when the shot counts were higher. And of course, when the shot counts are higher and you've got a goaltender out there making all kinds of, you know, having to stand on his head and turn sideways and, you know, stack pads, and he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff to make saves just any way he can because the shots are coming at him so fast. That's exciting, right? That's fun to watch. And so just a couple years into my love of hockey, here comes Curtis Joseph, and man, he was fun to watch. Number 2 on my list would be Felix Potvin, who spent most of his career with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you can see that I'm dating myself by naming right off the bat two goaltenders who played in the same era in the early 90s. But Felix Potvin was another one of those guys where, I'm not trying to say these guys were not positionally sound, but their reflexes were so fantastic. And it was just a real treat to watch the Toronto Maple Leafs back then. He was just he was something. And I loved the Maple Leafs. And I never got to see a game in Maple Leaf Gardens. I went to Toronto in 1994, I think it was, and I got to go inside Maple Leaf Gardens and do not really a tour, just got to see little bits and pieces of it. But there was a big mural, if I remember correctly, of Felix Potvin right inside. And man, I loved Felix Potvin. Anyway, that was a fun trip. And by the way, if you've never been to Toronto, and specifically if you've never been to the Hockey Hall of Fame, you need to go. It is amazing. I haven't been since 94, so I'm sure it's way different now than it was 26 years ago. But man, it was an awesome trip. Number one on my list of all-time favorite goaltenders to watch, and I'll give a little clue here. Little clue. Put on my Buffalo Sabres hat. Not that he played with Buffalo his whole career, but he played with Buffalo a good chunk of his career, and that's Dominik Hasek. If you are too young to remember Dominik Hasek, do yourself a big favor. Go on to YouTube. You're already on YouTube if you're watching this. Finish watching this video, okay? Please do me that favor. But as soon as you're done watching this video and after you've hit the like button and the subscribe button, which I think is down here if I'm not mistaken, but whichever side it's on, once you've hit the like button and the subscribe button and this video is all over, then go pull up some highlight videos of Dominik Hasek. Now, you talked about a guy who was not positionally sound, okay? I'm not saying he was incapable of being positionally sound, but being positionally sound was not necessarily high on the man's priority list. That dude made saves in such ways that I don't know that any other goalie in the history of goaltending has ever played quite like Dominik Hasek. That guy was something. But if ever there was a goaltender in the NHL that was fun to watch, it was Dominik Hasek. If ever there was a goaltender in the history of hockey that was fun to watch, it was Dominik Hasek. And by the way, I said earlier that I would rank Brodeur and Waugh 2 and 3 of the best goaltenders all time. Dominik Hasek would be number 1 for me. I just think that Dominik Hasek was, he was a breed apart. He was something that we'd never seen before, and I don't think we'll ever see again. He could make saves using the most unorthodox methods possible. But at the end of the day, he was really focused on one thing, just get something in front of that puck. Sometimes, I do think being positionally sound is the best way to play goaltending. But if you have a skill set, if you have the reflexes like Dominik Hasek, I think it's theoretically possible that being positionally sound or caring too much about being positionally sound can actually get in the way. Can prevent you from just doing whatever comes naturally to get something in front of the puck, and that's what Dominik Hasek did. So again, if you are not familiar with Dominik Hasek, or if you've never taken the time to watch him play or watch some highlight reels of him, you really need to, because he was just amazing. Now, who is my favorite goaltender to watch who is playing now? Well, that would be Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury is so fun to watch. Not just because he's good, positionally sound good, not just because he's reflex-wise good. He does make some spectacular saves. He definitely belongs on the highlight reels. But he, more than almost any other goaltender I think I've ever seen in my life, he just looks like he's having fun out there. Now, I think there are a lot of guys that do, but nobody like Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury rarely strikes me as somebody who's getting so caught up in it all that he forgets that he's a goaltender in an awesome sport at the highest level, being paid to do what he just naturally loves to do. He looks like a man who just truly enjoys his life and enjoys what he's doing. And it's so awesome to watch. In fact, I have 2 sons, and one of them does not like sports at all, but the other one likes hockey, and Marc-Andre Fleury is his favorite goaltender, and maybe that has influenced me a little bit. But I remember being a teenager and really being enamored by guys like Dominik Hasek or Martin Brodeur or Felix Potvin or Curtis Joseph or, you know, a whole host of others that were around at that time. Some that I liked, like the guys I've named, some that I hated, like Ed Belfour, but still he was fantastic. I can't deny that. But I remember sort of the excitement of the thrill of watching these guys play when I was young and before I had seen, you know, thousands of hockey games or however many I've watched in my life. But watching my son watch Marc-Andre Fleury kind of reminds me of myself and how fun it was. And it's still fun. Watching hockey is still fun. I still love every minute of it. But there is a sense of newness that has worn off because I've been watching it for 30 plus years, I guess. Let me think about that. Yeah, about 32 years. So there is a little bit of sense of newness that has worn off. So I mean, unless somebody comes along like a Dominik Hasek again, or somebody, there is still a little bit of a sense of newness when you see people do things that they didn't do back in the 90s or in the 80s or, since then. Like you look at a guy like McDavid or Draisaitl and the way they play. And I mean, I know there have been guys arguably who have been as good in the history of the NHL, but they're few and far between. And so when a guy like that comes along, it can sort of reinvigorate some of that excitement. But overall, I love to watch Marc-Andre Fleury, and I love to watch my son watch Marc-Andre Fleury because he enjoys him the way that I used to enjoy Dominik Hasek. Anyway, I don't know what prompted me to decide to do this video. It just popped into my head, and I thought, you know what? I'd like to talk about some of my favorite goaltenders for no other reason than just because I can. So I hope you find this interesting. Leave me a comment. Let me know who your all-time favorite goaltenders are. Let me know what goaltenders you like to watch the most now. And by the way, this just popped into my head. I think Carter Hart right now might be my second favorite. I'm not entirely sure why. Just something about him I just really like. Anyway, leave me a comment. Let me know who your favorites are. Let me know what you think of anything that I said in this video. Please, again, do hit like. Is it here or here? Wherever it is, do that. And more importantly than the like, please hit the subscribe, which I think is here. But if it's over here, just take the time to find it, wherever it is, and hit that subscribe button for me. And then thank you again for watching. Have a great day. Go watch some Dominik Hasek highlight reels because it's a treat. Have a great day. Bye now.